So in the case of the specialist prosecutor versus Hashim Thaçi, Kadri Veseli, Recep Salimi, and Jakub Krasniqi, the process is now that the prosecution is presenting its case, calling its witnesses. The prosecution has said that they intend to call their witnesses until April of 2025. So we're in the middle of that process. 85 witnesses have testified in the courtroom or through a video link, and another 69 have testified only in a written form. And so after the prosecution finishes with its case, then the defense will have the opportunity, if they wish, to seek the dismissal of charges, and pending any result of that, sometime next year, presumably, the defense would be able to begin calling their witnesses. In the Pietrushala case, we recently had the second war crimes judgment. Pietrushala was convicted of the war crimes of arbitrary detention, torture, and murder, and sentenced to 18 years of imprisonment. He is appealing that, and on Friday there is an initial appeals conference being held to discuss some preliminary matters. In another case against Mr. Yanuzi Batyari and Haji Shala, that case has moved now to the trial phase. That involves allegations that a witness was intimidated in order to prevent them from testifying before the specialist chambers. Yeah, so basically one of the jobs of the trial panel is, of course, the main job is to make sure that the proceedings are fair and expeditious. And so that involves basically asking the parties to give timelines when they expect to how long they expect to do certain things. And so the prosecution said it needs until April 2025, and the judges are really overseeing the process to try and make sure that the trial is expeditious, and they're asking the prosecution to streamline its case wherever possible. As you said, they have now a number of times announced reductions in their number of witnesses. Sure, Mr. Shala was convicted, as I mentioned, of arbitrary detention, torture, and murder in regards to events that took place in the UÇK-së metal factory in northern Albania, that was used as a detention center for persons who were perceived of as opposing the KLA, including Albanians and Serbs. And Mr. Shala specifically was convicted for his participation in the torture and arbitrary detention that took place there. That's a first instance verdict, and so he is appealing that verdict, and we'll see how it develops. Yeah, so I think overall the focus is, I think it's important for people to understand that, the authorities created the specialist chambers to deal with certain alleged crimes that fall within the jurisdiction as part of Kosovo's overall system of accountability and rule of law. So the way it works is the prosecution brings charges against someone for war crimes or crimes against humanity or witness interference. And then the judges, their focus is on providing fair and impartial trials. So that doesn't necessarily mean convictions. It doesn't mean acquittals. It means that the judges will listen to the evidence that's presented by the parties. They're going to apply the law, and they're going to make sure that they reach a fair outcome. And we saw recently in the case of Salim Mustafa that the court system, just like other courts here in Kosovo, there's a system of checks and balances whereby, for example, in the Salim Mustafa case, the trial panel imposed a sentence of 26 years imprisonment. Then the appeals chamber said, no, this sentence is not comparable to sentences by other tribunals for similar crimes. They lowered the sentence to 22 years. Then Mr. Mustafa appealed to the Specialist Chamber's Supreme Court, and they found that the appeals chamber had skipped a step in reaching their verdict, that they needed to consider the most lenient sentence relevant to the case in Kosovo law. The appeals chamber went back, and now they've lowered or they've issued a new sentence for Mr. Mustafa of 15 years. So I think it's really important to highlight that Judges are there to take the cases that come from the prosecution, to provide fair trials, and if someone feels that their rights have been violated or a wrong decision was reached, other judges will review that case.